Alrighty, welcome back, boys and girls. It's your main math man, Mr. Shank, coming to you live from Mayfield this time. And what we're going to quickly do, because I've done this video about approximately 8 times and I messed up each time, but hey, we make mistakes and we move on. So, we're going to have, for the first one, again, you're just making a translation. And so all you're doing is you want to be able to slide those points in the correct direction. So when you're working on the coordinate plane or you're working with translations at all, be able to have this picture or idea in your head for yourself. So if I'm looking at the keywords left, I'm looking at the keywords right, and so I have that left is going to be negative and right is going to be positive, and that's specifically for those ordered pairs. And those ordered pairs, you gotta have 2 socks to get out the door, you gotta have an X and a Y to be able to have an ordered pair. So make sure that you have X is going to be left to right and Y is going to be up and down, where up is positive and down is negative. So I can write my translation like this. I'm going to say that, okay, since it has 3 units to the left, I'm going to have -3 for the X. And then since it doesn't have anything else, well, what do? Well, we just have +0 for the Y value. And so each of those values are going to be like this. I'm going to have, for the X, I'm going to have 0 minus 3 is going to be -3. And then 0 plus 0, the easiest one, that's still 0. And so, again, each of those X values, you're just subtracting 3. Each of those Y values, oh, you're only adding 0, so they stay the same. You have to be able to apply that to each and every point. So, to graph it, again, I'm going to graph the pre-image first, and then I'm going to graph the image, or the end result. And so I have the points A, B, C, and D as my pre-image. I connect those lines to draw the shape, or the polygon. And so now I want to say, okay, how do I draw that image? Well, I'm shifting it 3 to the left, and so I'm going to have these points in orange is going to be A prime, B prime, C prime, and D prime. And now someone brought up, I credit them because they brought up, they said, hey, Ms. Shank, what do I do if these points overlap like this? It does seem weird, I will admit. However, as long as you are following the directions that it gives, it's totally fine. So it's just like chess. Again, you can overlap, you can go a specific direction as long as it is appropriate to those rules. So that's for the first one. For the second one, you're making a triangle with the vertices R, S, and T. That says translate 4 units to the right, and so we have +4 in the X. And we're going to have 1 unit down, so we have -1 in the Y. And so again, we're just going to say -8 plus 4 is going to be -4. 3 minus 1, well, that's still 2. So we have that ordered pair, -4, 2 for R prime. And so just like in the last one, you want to plot the original points, you want to plot the new points, or the image, and you want to make sure you label them, because a lot of times if you don't label them, it's just a shape out in the middle of space. So you have to be able to label those new points. For the last one, on translations, it says to translate 2 units to the right and 2 units up. So you have to be able to make kind of like that staircase. We're going 2 up, 2 to the right, 2 up, 2 to the right. So now we have -9 plus 2 is -7, -1 plus 2 is +1. And so each of those values, I'm just kind of doing simple arithmetic. I'm not making any mistakes this time. And I can have my easy and good end result, or my image. And so when I go to graph them, I'm graphing those original points in blue. I'm going to graph the image in orange. And so again, to drive that point home, like we were saying, I'm going 2 steps to the up, and 2 steps to the right. 2 steps up, 2 steps to the right. Again, each of those points makes that translation, and so you want to make sure that you're doing the equal translation for each of those points. So now, just like your hand, there's always a back to it. Sometimes it's blank. On back, flipping to the back, you have reflections, and so you're going to have the pre-image as those points A, B, C, and D, and then it's saying to reflect over the y-axis. And so anytime you see reflect, you want to highlight that axis that you're going over. So I'm saying I'm going over the y-axis, and the reason why I'm doing that is because it's a lot easier to see. Because what's happening? Well, my y values are going to stay the same, and my x values, well, I'm taking the opposite of them. And I can show that like this. Let's see if I can line this up here. So I'm going to have, anytime you are doing reflections, you want to put your hand over that axis. That way you can see, okay, if I'm lined up, I'm on my y-axis, I'm shifting over. So what's changing? My x values are changing. I'm taking the opposite of those x values. And so anytime you have that, just be able to write it like that. And so I'm keeping the y value. So my, I'm keeping the y value, but my x value I'm taking the opposite of. I'm not necessarily making it negative, I'm not necessarily making it positive, I'm just taking the opposite of whatever's given. Oh, Mr. Shank, what do I do? It's a 0. I don't know what to do. Any number times 0, still 0. So my x values are now the opposite, and my y values are still the same. So when we go to graph it, I graph the pre-image first in blue, and so now I'm reflecting over the y. So again, I still have that hand on the y-axis. I'm trying to think, okay, if I'm in quadrant 1, where am I going to end up at? Quadrant 2. And so I reflect over the y into my new points or the image, and I'm in there in orange. For the x-axis, again, I'm reflecting, so I need to now, let's see if we can do it again. I'm now saying, okay, I'm on my x-axis, and so I need to be changing my y values. And so anytime you have reflections, you just want to make sure that you are putting your hand on that axis. You want to make sure that you're making those correct changes. For the triangles, same kind of idea. Reflect over the y. Your y values stay the same. Your x values are now opposite. And then last but not least, for the fourth triangle, or the second triangle, I guess it would be, we're reflecting over the x, and so what stays the same? Still the x. So x values stay the same, my y values are taking the opposite of it. So if I'm starting in the second quadrant, I'm now going to be in the third quadrant. So all my values are going to be negative. Alrighty. Be sure, if you need to go back, rewind, fast forward, slow down, any of those parts, please do. Be sure to subscribe, and make sure that you're seeing, possibly do a vocab quiz at the end of the week, or something along those lines. I'll give you more details soon enough. If you have ideas for videos, if you want to be part of the video, please let me know. Gotta be in writing. Adios.